Jesse, you gain weight?
You're muted.
Wait, am I muted?
No, we hear you.
Oh, okay.
That's funny.
All right. Anyway.
You want to really introduce him?
Yeah, well, I was going to let him introduce himself.
Introduce yourself, fellas.
Yeah.
Who are you and why are you here?
And why should people care about you?
So,
Jesus, that's a good question.
I'm Kain Slowakowski. This is my brother, Jesse Slowakowski. We actually have no idea why we're here.
We have none.
None.
Can you
But
spell your
we're
last
here.
name for the public in case they were...
Well, we never actually figured that one out, but
You
next
remember? So
question.
I've known Kain and Jesse practically all my life, but I think for the longest time I spelled your name wrong.
I don't think you still can spell it.
Slowikowski.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.
I think so, right? That's how it's spelled.
Well, I don't know. Our parents could have messed that one up, so we don't really know if that's true or not.
Yeah, we're not really sure. So we
Okay.
go by Kain and Jesse.
Yeah, we're gonna go by Kain and Jesse.
In Charleston, South Carolina. So we
Yes.
can actually say why they're here,
Yeah,
right?
good.
So aside from being friends of yours, they're real estate agents in Charleston. So we don't talk a lot about real estate on this podcast, but we thought it'd be interesting to get different market dynamics and understanding what it's like in Charleston. And so maybe you can fill us in a little bit about, because you're from here originally, from Baltimore originally, right? So
Right.
tell us how you ended up in Charleston, how you got into real estate. Let's start from the beginning. Why'd you end up there?
I love Kane's
Oh, well,
smirk.
he was
just
here
wants to-
first, so I'll let Jesse talk about how he ended up here.
Yeah, I graduated college, University of Maryland, and came down to Charleston. Wanted warmer weather at the time. Real estate wasn't on my mind then.
Sorry, man. What are you laughing about?
Because every sentence he starts with, "Meh, yeah," like you can't stop. "Meh, yeah, I graduated college. "Meh, yeah, I moved down here." Just talk normal. "Meh, yeah."
All right, you graduated college, University of Maryland. This is going to be the whole
Yeah,
hour.
I
So
moved down here, and real estate wasn't on my mind. I convinced Kain to move down. He was living on the Outer Banks where our parents had moved while I was in college. And then I guess shortly thereafter, we figured it was a burgeoning real estate market. And we had our interests in purchasing property ourselves, which we really didn't at that time know much about. And we saw opportunities like those fluke things where people would purchase a property downtown for $200,000 and 2 years later sell it for like $600,000. And we were like, what's happening here? We didn't really understand it. So Kain moved down a year after I did, and he got started in real estate school. And then I did it about a year after he did. And then we both joined Dunes Properties here in Charleston. And then, we took off from there.
nice. And Kain, you were initially like a bartender and an owner of a bar down there in Charleston first, right?
Yeah. I was a project manager in the Outer Banks, and then I ended up moving down and got into running a bar restaurant on King Street, which was awesome. Met lots of cool people right in the heart of the city, and kind of ended up jumping into real estate while still running the bar, and then shifted over full time into real estate about 2015, I believe, and been running with it since.
Nice. And Kain, you just got a nice big real estate award, didn't you?
Yeah, I was. I could see Quincy laughing.
No, serious.
I got
This is
the
serious.
silver-
This is not
Realtor
laughter. This
distinction.
is a smile of
Pride. I think
pride.
that-
Yeah, I'm proud of you, buddy.
You're his friend, man. He talks about
Yeah.
you all the time.
Yeah,
Hey. Hey,
Yeah.
thanks, Quincy. I
You're
appreciate
welcome,
that.
buddy.
So, yeah, Realtor distinction, top 10% of Charleston Realtors.
yeah. That was the. I think they gave you the silver medal.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. You were
Okay.
going to go with the silver there and,
No,
mention that I didn't get the gold. Is that what's
I
going
didn't,
on?
I didn't even know a gold existed. I just saying. I saw the Instagram post.
I think you literally text me and asked me why I wasn't gold.
Listen, man, you can't prove that. So anyway,
You did it from here. I was here when you texted him.
Right.
Jesse, what award did you get?
Nothing.
Oh, shit.
Why?
Sorry, man.
Nothing. I just didn't, I think you have to do, what is the minimum sales you have to do?
I think what you should be asking them is what awards they got.
Yeah. Have you ever won an award up there? for anything.
We actually have a box
We-
of awards somewhere.
Oh, it's behind David.
Yeah.
Here, get those two.
Is it-
We'll
Yeah,
share.
we have them all over the place. Yeah.
They had a cherry case made for all the
Yeah.
awards
Does
in
it
the office.
does it actually have anything to do with real estate, or do they just
It's
like
No,
next to their
most of
dodgeball
our
and make it
awards
Next to the Nerf gun.
are made by our children. Best Dad Award.
Right.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that really matter.
Those are. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have office ping pong tournaments?
Not since COVID, but before, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But now we do not. Soon though. Soon. Yeah. Most of our office, I feel like at least the people that would play in that tournament have been vaccinated. So I think it's on the agenda soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was
Do
it.
all of your offices there have a Nerf gun wall? I'm just
No,
curious.
that would be just us.
We dominate.
okay.
We
Yeah.
dominate.
I was able to shoot my lender directly in the mouth last week with my Nerf gun.
So no one in your office can defend themselves from your
No,
Nerf weapon.
other people do have Nerf guns, just a single, like a
Not a
single
Nerf
shot,
wall.
Yeah.
but not a
No,
Nerf wall.
just one.
Yeah, they don't have the breadth of a weaponry that we have.
It's an arsenal, really.
Yeah.
That's how I would describe it.
Yeah,
You guys do go big.
yeah.
We do. So
I mean,
that.
you.
Go ahead, man.
Go ahead.
What are you gonna say?
I was going to say you could just dupe them, and when they think it's a Nerf gun, it can be a paintball, and you could shoot them with that.
I feel like that there is a line somewhere in this building to get sued.
I think that would cross it. I
Yeah.
think that would cross it. Right?
and I think
So,
I
I think, like,
actively try and find it on a daily basis, and I think that might be it.
So you either have really good aim
Mm-hmm.
or really bad aim because whoever you shoot at gets hit in the face.
So, on a serious note, so obviously, like our market's crazy, insanely tight up here, and talking to Kain and you guys all the time, I know your market's even nuttier, right? Kain, you told me the other day that something like all of Charleston had 1,600 homes that day available.
Right. I mean, we're usually sitting around 5,500, maybe 6,000
Right.
homes inventory. We're down to like 1,600 homes.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It is pretty crazy because I've got a lot of buyer clients who I just can't find the right home because there's just nothing out there,
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
It actually makes it hard. I have a client now, and they want to sell, but the buying aspect, like to write an offer on a place. I mean, selling the place wouldn't be the problem, but buying a place would be the problem.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
We
was
got to have a
talking-
game plan approaching it, I think.
right.
Just,
I was-
go ahead.
I was talking to a lender the other day, and he said something interesting about how we're in an interesting time because right now people are afraid to sell their house before they buy a house, where it used to be the opposite.
Right.
So people are holding their mortgages now for 3 or 4 months, or holding both mortgages, which is
Right.
crazy. So are you when you guys sell, are you selling mostly to people who like are Charleston local, have been there for a while, or do you find yourself selling more to people who are moving to the area? Because Charleston has a ton of transplants.
A lot of all of it. I mean, we're getting an influx of people moving to Charleston. You've got people, shifting around for different reasons, and of course, we have a large vacation destination title. So you're getting a lot of people buying on the beaches and even downtown. I mean, that's these are like second homes or vacation properties people are looking at. So we get a little mix of everything.
Yeah, it depends on location of where you are. Usually the areas like James Island, maybe like some more suburban areas, they definitely attract a local crowd. And then downtown, the beaches, definitely like, that outside crowd coming in.
Nice. What do you think about Charleston is attracting everybody? I mean, besides like the mostly warm temperatures, except for today where Baltimore's crushing it. What do you think is so attractive about Charleston?
You've got I think medium-sized cities are really attractive right now across the country, period. But also Charleston's always been a destination because of the beaches, the preserved downtown scene, the surrounding country areas, which are attractive to people. There's a big food aspect to the town. There's just a lot to offer. And in a medium-sized city, I think people coming out of larger cities are saying I can still have all my comforts from home, but I've got this whole other thing that I can explore now, which is really fun for us because we're into all that and we get to show people what's cool about the city.
So for people who aren't familiar with like Charleston geography, like myself, I went there twice. Once was to visit you guys, and then the other time was tour the College of Charleston when I was like 18. But
Huge mistake not going there.
I know. But
Yeah.
when you
big
think
time.
about medium-sized cities, I mean, think about Baltimore, D.C., like Philadelphia here, it's pretty much the normal representation of what people think a city looks like. But in Charleston, you guys are a series of islands. Is that right? Like, can you explain to people what the Charleston geography is like? It's not just one city. It's like a bunch of different satellite islands. Is that right?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, the main peninsula is downtown Charleston, but the city kind of has spread out a bit from that into the surrounding sea islands, which are basically islands behind barrier islands. And then you have your barrier islands, which are, where your beach towns are and that sort of thing. And that's all kind of the metropolitan area. And what people call it is the low country. And that is, I mean, as simple as it is described. It's low-lying land, a lot of savanna and marshland, a lot of islands and that sort of thing. So those waterways do break up Charleston into different, I'm not going to call them boroughs, but you kind of get the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And each one has like a separate, culture, or each one has its own offerings that are attractive to some people moving down here.
What would be some of the more like highlight differences of the different islands? Like you mentioned John's Island before, and what would be the differences between some of them?
Like, for instance, just to pick up on John's Island, I mean, you're like 15, 20 minutes away from downtown Charleston in John's Island, but it's been farmland for 400 years. So there's neighborhoods and stuff, but it's very rural. It's got cool restaurants and stuff, but it's spread out. And a lot of it's zoned as agricultural to kind of protect that type of atmosphere as the years go on. So that's pretty cool to have something like that close to downtown Charleston. If you jump over to like Mount Pleasant, for instance, it's it's developed. There's a lot of great neighborhoods. There's two islands nearby that people go to and love to enjoy the beaches there. But that's a completely different atmosphere than, say, John's Island or West Ashley or James Island. Each one's kind of different, all within 15, 20 minutes of downtown Charleston.
Yeah, you really get to pick your preference if you're moving here. You rely on your realtor to kind of take you to the right location and kind of show you the vibe of every single place, and they all have a little bit of a different vibe.
As far as the real estate on the islands, though, is there, like where we are in Baltimore, different neighborhoods have different sort of characteristics in the type of house, the style of the housing, the architecture. Is that similar down there, or do most of the islands kind of feel the same?
I mean, getting used to something on like here is being that it's low country. A lot of the homes near marsh, river, or the ocean are built up on pilings. That's something you're going to have to, adjust to. We're trying to stay above a base flood elevation. Downtown has a very strong preservation society, so a lot of the buildings from the 18th and 19th century are completely intact and protected. There's no high rises really downtown. There's a couple bigger hotels, but they have restrictions on how tall buildings can be to protect that charm of the city. So those are some of the more unique things you see. You can almost trace the decades of development back in Charleston as you look through houses and stuff. When bedroom communities kind of popped up and that sort of thing, you kind of can pick the time period.
Gotcha. I mean, what are, like, because of the geography, I mean, it's such a unique area. What are some of the challenges of selling real estate? Like you mentioned, just briefly, something about the flood zones.
Yeah, so, I mean, flooding, it is going to be a concern in an area that's on the coast like this, especially low-lying. So when you're going to look at houses, you have to look into where the property sits and its elevation and what kind of flood insurance you're going to have to take on, especially if you're using lending. Then some areas are built in floodplains, some aren't, some are up high. This is just the kind of research that your realtor should help you out with when you're looking at real estate in Charleston. But it's going to be hard pressed to find things over 40 foot, let's put it that way. A lot of stuff is in that like 10 to 20 foot range.
You mean above sea level?
Yeah, above sea level.
Wow. What's Riverland Terrace? You were telling me. I was shocked to know how high above sea level that was.
Certain parts of it, this is our neighborhood if
right.
Anyone's interested, but it's it's built up on a berm above the Stono River, so you're about 35 to 40 some feet up. And they also built a fort there. It's in the neighborhood in the Civil War for the same reason. It's up high, and they get a view of the river.
Right. I mean, it was so interesting to me, like, you know, living in Baltimore and, you know, being on the water a lot, trying to navigate the Charleston just market and trying to understand the waterfront there. It was so shocking to me to look at a map and see all this waterfront and then very few like actual little waterfront real estate, because you realize how much marsh there is. So much water.
So much marsh.
Right. But very little buildable waterfront property, which makes it go at a huge premium.
Well, there's like a 6-7 foot tide swing here. So that does make it much more difficult for deep water access.
Right.
So if you have that river draining out 6 feet or something like that, you know, it makes it more of a challenge. I'll tell you, you know, I'm not the best at navigating the waterways around here, but it is pretty. It can be. Yeah. You gotta know what you're doing. There's a lot of oyster beds and pluff mud. Yeah. You guys know what pluff mud is?
Well, you told us when we were down there last.
You enlightened us last time.
And then remember, I spent 2 weeks calling everybody a pluff mudder.
Yeah, that's you know, it's basically like muck that is just like accumulated over
from receding water.
Years of decaying Spartan grass and other things and whatnot. But you drive your boat over that, and it's a nightmare.
It's like quicksand.
Or if you stand in it, yeah, you'll be like waist deep in it. It's terrible.
Right. Yeah.
When I first moved down here, I found it was interesting that compared to places like, say, like Ocean City, Maryland, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with, you go in the bay, you can take your boat down to restaurants and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And here, because of that, the marshlands and the pluff mud and all that, that doesn't really exist down here. You know, there's a couple places like Shem Creek, for instance, in Mount Pleasant, you can do that. But I found that interesting at first. I didn't understand before I got into real estate why they weren't utilizing more of that area, but now I get it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Do you get a lot of clients who are looking for houses? Like, do you get the opportunity to show houses by boat? I know it's like a weird question, but like, do you ever get clients who are like, hey, I need to find deep water access for my boat. I can only see houses. Yeah, like, how do you navigate that?
So if that situation came about where we would need a boat to see real estate, we can make it happen. But there are certain areas, for instance, Dewey's Island, which is a little north of Mount Pleasant and Isle of Palms. That community is on an island only accessible by boat. So your agent would have to, you know, get you out to show real estate via boat. And there are certain private islands for sale around Charleston which require only boat access.
And to piggyback on that, like say, for instance, if you're on Folly Beach, you know, real estate that has deep water access is a premium, obviously. And there is a difference between that and ones that, for instance, if they, depending where they sit in the island, they may not be able to, you know, access the deep water because of those marshlands that we're talking about. So yeah, that is something that, you know, buyer clients come down, they do look for, and they are interested in. You know, the deep water access is a big thing down here for people.
Is it hard to get people to understand? Because I know it took me a while to get used to understanding the massive tide swings, not being used to it. Like obviously, like I'm on the water all the time up here, but you know our tide swings are nothing. I mean, they might be a foot and a half. You know, our version of a king tide might be 3 feet, which is not that big. You guys have daily tide swings of 7 to 9 feet, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do people out of town have a hard time understanding that?
I mean, it's something they're not, if they don't know already and they find out, it's kind of like, where did the beach go?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Once they figure it out, you know, this is, you know, becomes a way of life. But it is, growing up in Maryland and then moving to Charleston, it is a humongous difference. And sometimes we'll go to the beach and, you know, you got to move your chair or something like that if tide's coming up because it's going to be underwater.
Yeah. You'll go from 100 feet of beachfront to maybe 10.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, I've been there sorry, I just watched a guy lose a tire. He just rolled out in the middle of the street.
Wait, what?
The guy just, look, he lost a tire.
Oh, there he
is. And it just, Baltimore's crazy.
Look at that guy.
We know.
He's carrying a tire across the highway. Why not?
Right. Well, I remember that we were sitting there. I don't know where we were. I guess you called it the cut or something, Kain. We were watching the
Yeah.
tide swing, and the water was moving at like 5-6 miles an hour just on its own from the tide.
That's actually a good
Yeah.
point you brought up. Like that's another thing is the tide going in or out can be treacherous in certain areas for boating and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I couldn't
And that's
believe that
not-
there was a
that's
boat
also-
launch there.
Yeah, that's actually not. That's a man-made cut that they have right there.
Right.
Actually, between our neighborhood and the neighborhood over in West Ashley, and it almost makes me think like it was not thought about. Maybe having something unnatural.
Right.
Because I feel like something like that one in particular, when you get out there and see that water moving, it is moving quickly.
Right.
I've always wanted to just throw a raft in there and just ride it down to the one access to the other.
Sure.
It's kind of like a river raft.
Jesus. Well, you guys are both into surfing, right? Can you go ahead and tell us some of like your favorite surf spots, steps you got to look out for because of these large tidal swings and everything like that?
Hold on. But before we can answer that question, it would actually be against like our code as surfers to identify to you where the great surf spots were. So we'll go with the most generic one that everyone knows, which is the washout on Folly Beach.
Yeah, tell us where
basically-
tourists could come down and shred the nar.
Not the washout.
Don't go to the washout. Go to the pier.
The
And
Folly
look for a guy
Pier?
named Chris Kemp. Go sit next to him.
so they get entangled by a fishing hook? Why would they go to the Folly Pier?
Actually, listen, piers do create good waves.
Okay.
But washout Folly Beach, just past 14th block on the east end of the island. And basically the washout is what it seems. It's
Well, if you're in James Island downtown or West Ashley, you're probably going to end up in Folly Beach surfing. And if you're in Mount Pleasant, you're probably going to end up in Isle of Palm surfing.
right.
They're just closer and easier to get. Both have great waves.
Recently, what we have been doing is waiting for certain swell directions, and then there's little barrier islands and little sand spits out there, and seeing how the waves react to varying different conditions. Which we found a couple of secret spots, but it's the only access. It's only accessible by either boat in one area and paddleboard in the other. So you have to actually take a paddleboard and paddle across basically an inlet with your surfboards on top of it to get to this place.
And so the only
Why wouldn't you just paddle surf and kill two birds with one stone? I'll sit here and wait your answer.
It's exhausting.
Oh.
There you go.
That's pretty good.
That's
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier to
Kain,
take a paddle.
I'm thinking the same thing
than
you are
using
right
your
now.
arm.
With that,
Right?
I can't believe you just
Like,
admitted
when
that.
you sitting there, duh! Like, dude, hey, did you ever hear? So when next time you're in your little dinghy, don't turn the motor on, but just take your arms and just paddle them on the outside of it and see how quickly you can move across anywhere.
You mean my boat?
That is an excessive purchase for a guy who really is just getting into boating. No.
You got to
Hair plugs and it's excessive purchase for a dude who's just getting into being a man.
What did you say? What did you say?
It's funnier that he didn't hear it.
I didn't hear it.
So, going back to real estate. So do you think, Kain, you and I have talked about this, right? So obviously the Charleston market is tight like every other market. But I also think it's unique because it was on fire before COVID. Not that the COVID market is creating a market that's on fire. It's just different. What do you think is going to happen in the next? I know you can't predict this, but what are you predicting for the Charleston market? You think it's going to stay like this, stay hot?
I mean, I think you're going to have varying degrees of progression in the market here.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to pick up and slow down and that sort of thing, but I don't think it's going to stop growing here.
Right.
I think this town has got a lot of room to grow, and that may be, a lot of locals that might not be happy about the growth and where it's going and whatnot. But it's a beautiful city with a lot to offer, and a lot of people want to stake their claim here. So it's gonna grow over the next few decades, I think. It'd be exciting to see where it goes. There are some people here really involved with the planning of that, and I think so far they've done a great job, and that's why Charleston keeps getting the best city in the world award and that sort of thing. So exciting to see where it goes.
Is Charleston allowed to annex surrounding land?
Charleston has tried
Okay.
and has been successful and unsuccessful in some attempts. James Island being a great example. The city of Charleston has tried to take James Island, and James Island's also created its own town. They've gone to court a few times, and the result of that is certain parts of James Island are considered the city of Charleston. Some are the town of James Island, and then some are just unincorporated county territory now,
Right.
which is our properties, for
Yeah,
instance.
we're in county, yeah.
But anyway, that's that kind of thing going on. But Mount Pleasant's its own town, and then West Ashley is actually part of the city of Charleston.
Gotcha. That's interesting.
Is there a lot of, or
Yeah.
is there any land left for like new development, or mostly is it just a lot of resale stuff, and every once in a while you'll see a new building come up?
Builders can't keep up. I mean, there's a lot of new construction going on, especially up the 26 corridor northwest towards Somerville. There's been a lot of huge communities going in over there. There's development south on 17. There's development in Johns Island. So there's a lot of new stuff being built around Charleston. It's just they can't keep up. That's honestly the issue.
There's not a lot of new building anywhere that's kind of close to downtown. Obviously, because from the downtown area, there's a lot of resale homes that have already been previously built. So most of the new builds are kind of out on the outskirts a little bit.
How do you think, so with a city that has so much development going on, like in downtown, sort of, around it, like what's the infrastructure of Charleston like? That seems to be the big problem with any city that has any age to it, that the development far outpaces the infrastructure. You have what?
Yeah, we're having our issues with that.
Yeah.
They've been talking about building a beltway, connecting the beltway through for, I don't know, 10 years or more, and still haven't come to a conclusion on that. A lot of the older roads aren't set up for the amount of traffic, so
Right.
there's a lot of big projects in the works to fix that. But yeah, I mean, it's a super old city, and there's been a lot of growth in a short period of time. Growing pains are going to occur in any town. It's just how they plan it out. They have made some, for instance, Johns Island, there was a big bottleneck there. They put a 2-lane in and fixed that. It's been a huge difference. So that kind of stuff is changing, and hopefully we can keep up.
Gotcha. Before we let you guys go, if somebody's going to visit Charleston, so non-real estate related, try and rattle off like 5 things they have to do.
You want to go back and forth on this?
All right, you do.
Yeah, I like when you guys debate, and then I want to get an updated list of restaurants too, because I don't think, even though it's constantly named as like best food city, I think people are always surprised when I talk about Charleston and its food scene. People seem to be just, I don't know, ignorant.
They're
to that
surprised?
fact. Yeah, I find a
Really?
lot of people, when I talk to them about it, they're pretty ignorant on Charleston's food scene.
That's so crazy.
I think you got to be into food to really, be about it.
Yeah,
to
well,
quote
I guess
Master P.
since living here, we're like in the mix of it all the time, and the city does a good job of promoting its own
Right.
food scene. So like we're constantly bombarded with new concepts and big name chefs
Mhm.
trying things out here, and it's it also has its own history of food, which is much different than I grew up with in Maryland. So
Right.
learning about Gullah culture and food and seafood from here and that sort of thing is totally different than I'm used to growing up. So I would say you got to check out the food scene, and you might want to hit the staples around Charleston. I'd say one would be go to Husk. What? No?
Everyone's so we have a really
Classic
big chef.
Southern.
We have a really big
cuisine.
chef down here. His name's Sean Brock, and he's great at what he does. And he started basically Husk. This was probably back in 2012 or 13. And Husk was a farm to table, local all ingredients, and it was really successful. However, me personally, I'm not really big into that type
Good
of
food?
food. It's definitely what's that?
Nothing.
Like it's just Southern food, and I'm
But
not.
they're sourcing from farms on Johns Island, from local butchers, and that.
Yeah, and they've also done.
I think if you're coming to Charleston, it may not necessarily be your scene, but if you're a
Right.
tourist to Charleston, I think it's on the list of things you should
Right.
probably go.
Also, if you're going to go to Husk, make sure you make a reservation like 2 months in advance.
Sure. Yeah. Also,
Where else
in the
would you recommend?
defense, hang on.
Food?
Let me
Food
prove
would be
Jesse wrong. Shut up.
But that,
To prove you wrong, one thing that guy has done a really good job at is he has done a really good job at bringing some of that indigenous culture and even some of those foods back to that area. Because I think
right.
for a while that entire area suffered from a sort of fast foodification of food. Everything was deep fried, and that's what America thought Southern food was. And
Yep.
even though, yes, I do think it's kind of weird to go in and pay $50 for shrimp and grits. I hear you, but it's not exactly what it is.
a chicken and vegetable plate will cost you $35.
Can you guys, before we go and we let you go, can you rattle
Okay.
off like about 5 things that if you're a tourist and you're heading to Charleston, give me just like 5 things you have to do?
I think you got to walk around by foot on the old end of the peninsula through the alleys, and you could bike ride or walk. But just check out the architecture and the gardens and the views. It's beautiful.
2, I would say, even though it sounds really cliche and touristy, actually take one of the tours, carriage tour. They have one called the Dark Side Tour. They basically they dive into the history of Charleston, and it's worth your while because it's information that you otherwise wouldn't find out.
I would say eat and drink your way through Charleston. Check out the restaurants. There's a ton of great breweries, distilleries. There's just so many things to explore. You could spend a year doing that.
Yeah. Beaches, stone's throw from downtown. You have the best of both worlds.
One
What's the
more.
last thing?
Is that for you?
What do you think?
That's 4.
So much.
There's so much
to
to
do.
actually do.
What about like nothing like the forts or anything like that?
Actually, I mean,
Cool.
the fort's
It's
pretty
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess Sumter's a big one, but I kind of tied that into tours, like
Okay.
kind of like history tours,
Sure.
like everything all
Okay.
together.
That makes sense.
That covers a lot of those.
I would hit the,
Out in the water.
I would hit the
probably-
water.
Yeah, probably be out like
There's so many.
cruise, sunset cruise,
I mean, just
catamaran.
so many things to see and explore on the water. So many little islands, and just it's beautiful. I would do that. I
Gotcha.
think that'd be cool.
Can you leave us? There's one thing you said that I meant to circle back to. So you talked about the architecture. So Charleston has a nickname called the Holy City. Can one of you just talk us through how it got that nickname? Because I don't think it's why people think.
You want to take this one?
No.
Are you going to learn along with us, Jesse? Go ahead, Kain.
No,
You're
I
the
mean,
historian.
I would say that the Holy City, from my understanding, was just basically that the Charleston Preservation Society, Historical Preservation Society, pretty much you have to go through a long, extensive list to do any kind of modifications, upgrades on homes, and then most importantly, no building is allowed to be built in the highest steeple in the city of Charleston. So that's how I understand the Holy City. I'm sure there's probably other spirits and things like that.
The skyline of Charleston is, you could see the steeples,
right?
Which got its nickname. But here's something else to know. There was a ton of churches in Charleston, but there was always been more bars.
Nice. Which is how you two degenerates ended up down there.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to let you guys go. We'll put all your information in case somebody's looking to buy some real estate. They can reach out to Kain.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, thanks.
I was waiting for it too. You got me on that one too.
So cool. All right. Take it easy.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you again.
All right, guys.
See ya.
Appreciate it. See you.
See ya.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to listen to the podcast.
Fucking Mike Tyson.
All right. Hey, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to listen to the podcast.
Make sure you follow us on social media. Check us out on searchbmore.com and subscribe to the podcast. And all future content is available to you.
Yes.
If you subscribe
Perfect.
to it.
Thank you. Good
See
job. Bye.